My brothers followed a very strict and dignified path, worthy of the education they received from my parents. It was the opposite for me. Basically, I have two older brothers. We started with karate. And at 15, I wanted to go to a gym in a neighborhood that was not far from Maine. And there was a guy who came. To this day, I couldn't say why. He slapped me. He was in his 30s, twice my age of 15. And as I was leaving, I told him, listen, I'm not going to use any swear words. As I was leaving, I told him, remember one thing, it's that the little ones grow up. And I'll get you, to put it politely. I left and he chased me, continuing the insult. I managed to escape and I went home. I didn't want to do karate anymore. There, I wanted a violent sport because I had in mind to... I was determined to get revenge. It was not going to end there. I kept it to myself because telling my brothers would have made them go after him. So I preferred to say nothing. And time passed, so I started with Thai boxing. Then I started Thai boxing competitions. I trained in wrestling, all combat sports. And one day I hear that there is a mixed martial arts club, which was banned at the time in France because it has only recently been allowed. I was 16. The coach didn't want me to train because I was a minor. I was young. I told him, put on the gloves with me. He felt that there was something, a desire, a grit. And I train, 18 years, so I'm ready to fight. My coach tells me, first competition, let's go. I started a fight, then strangely in each fight I had his head. For me, it was him who was facing me. And I learned over time that he is a network leader. So I didn't really care. No, I don't give a damn. I'm heading to his neighborhood to warn the young people there that I need to settle things with him. There, that was 3 years later, and one day I ran into him, and that was my first conviction. I went to prison for a year because we fought, and he filed a complaint from prison. So I make acquaintances, and then I surround myself. The largest criminal associations are formed in prison, not outside. And they gave me the idea to take over his network, which I did. And I thought to myself, as long as I'm doing it, how to really piss him off, take over what he's ready to die for. There are different ways to take over a network. There's the path of intimidation, there's the more violent path. It's the very violent path. The murders in Marseille is all we hear about. And then for me, it was intimidation, because especially since before we had fought. He knew that I had, or actually, I think he understood that I was not giving up. When I had something in mind, I wouldn't let go. So following that, I dived straight into the drug scene. And little by little, it was no longer, there was no longer this feeling of revenge, but this feeling of greed. Because we get into a spiral and we can't control anything anymore. Caught up in money, we no longer have any limits. That's why I always come back to my parents' education. Because really, that's what saved me. That's what made me never kill. It's because as soon as we have a network, automatically, who says network says money. So who says money says jealous attack or opportunistic or whatever. That's it, all the wolves start to gather around. And that's why we hear a lot of murders today, because it tears the networks now. So I'm going back to prison. And during this period, something exceptional happens. When I get back, I'm placed in a cell with an Italian cellmate who's in for murder. I'm a bit distant, I'm wary because I'm told he's in for murder. I was afraid that in the night he would take a blade to me. We don't know what's going on in his head. And one day we were out for a walk. I had an anecdote that I wanted to share with my colleagues, and my co-prisoner Bruno, who had seen what I wanted to call over a witness to confirm that what I was saying was true, as they had seen it themselves. And I called him, he was in the middle of a conversation, so he was engrossed in his discussion. Bruno. So he kept talking, he was there, and then I throw at him the only two words I knew from opera. I do it. Oh, my son, really, it was like that, but I was laughing. Really, yeah, like that. And from there, I discovered this opera voice, whereas maybe a few weeks before, if someone had told me I would be an opera singer, I would have been offended, I wouldn't have laughed. I would have been offended because being an opera singer, you can tell someone walking down the street you're going to be an opera singer, or, I don't know, but someone from a neighborhood who manages, I'm a nice guy, me, but boxer, nothing to do with this environment. It's another world. And so the detention head who comes opens the door to the yard and asks who was singing. So I tell him it was me, and to my great surprise, he and his wife are big opera fans. He was impressed, telling me he heard me echo as he was surrounded by walls. Whatever we do, we hear it. Over there, yes, we can say the walls have ears. So he summons me, he tells me you can come to the office afterwards, and he talks about that with me. He tells me, but you knew. I say, no, no, no. He brings me 2 CDs, I still have them. 2 CDs of Pavarotti. I knew he was the big opera singer. That's it, but I didn't know he was one of the Italians' favorites, Pavarotti, but nothing more. And then I start listening, and in my cell, I had my Italian co-inmate who translated the lyrics for me. And the more I listened to opera, the more translations I got, and basically, the more I fed on opera, the more it spoke to me, and it really became a passion. From there, they called me Nabel the singer, but it was funny, because the people in prison would call their wife or family, and they would say, oh, there's a guy, he has an insane voice, and then they would call me through the window. Nabil O sing, and I would sing through the window. But it was because I'm a bon vivant. I like to laugh. So I was singing, and then everyone was impressed. That I did when I came back. I was thinking about the exit, who I'm going to deal with. That was it. And there, my criminal association, it was Pavarotti. That means I told myself that it's with Pavarotti that I'm going to deal. If he hears me from up there, he's going to call me a fucking idiot. I really wanted to get out of it. I really wanted to get out of it because I had this thing weighing on me that I had hurt my wife. Even though I continued and caused more pain, that I was a little jerk, I kept it in mind. And then I really told myself, you have something. You have a thread that you must not let go. Because I think if I succeed in this, I know I have the family's forgiveness. So I hold on to this rope tightly and I don't let go anymore. So after a year, I get out of prison, the detention chief who accompanies me to the exit and tells me, really, you really need to do something in music and particularly opera. Upon my release, I think it's maybe 3 or 4 days later, I go to the opera, I go into the opera, I watch an opera show. Before I used to say a concert, I learned that it was a recital. I listen, and at the end, people applaud, stand up, and before everyone leaves, I quickly went down. I went up on stage. It's true that it's cheeky, and in hindsight, I say to myself, damn, it's hard what you did. It was a mess. The pianist lost it, called Security. I was there, and though I initially refused, I found my voice. I'm a tenor, and I'm a tenor. I want the life of a professional. But for me, I actually respected it because I waited patiently until the end. So for me, it's not like I'm interrupting or cutting off a show. I really go on stage at the end, and that means that's it. The fight is over, as they say. And the pianist who says to me, but what is this? What is this cockroach of weapons and all? She was screaming. She was going crazy. I also learned about my cockroach of aroma that day. I didn't know what a cockroach of aroma was. I thought she was calling me a cockroach so much. So I tell them I would like to sing, and I didn't know the title I wanted to sing is one of the hardest tunes for a tenor. And so I start these notes. She raises her head and she thinks, maybe he's not as crazy as that. Harbin, I'm joking. As I perform the title song, my voice rises higher and higher. At the end, I reach the highest notes. And as I turn after singing, I see the pianist playing with tears in her eyes. So it was incredible. It's a moment I will never forget in my life. And among the people there was a tenor who was singing over there. He who was a singer, Norberg Zeri, who became my opera teacher. A video was posted behind me, and I was contacted by The Voice at Incredible Talents, so I chose Incredible Talents. And so following Incredible Talents, it allowed me to gain visibility. Bella Ciao, in fact, the Italian had told me about it when we were in the cell of this song, because when I had all of Pavarotti's tracks on CDs, I would say, I like this track, I don't like that track. And he says to me, damn, there's no Bella Ciao. And Bella Ciao, I say to him, why, what is it? He tells me it's an Italian partisan song. And he tells me, really, this title, it's something. But he talked to me about it, so he didn't talk to me about it every day. He really talked to me about it once or twice. And this big series, La Casa de Papel, arrives in France. I watch the series, and there, Bella Ciao. And there, all of a sudden, because I hadn't made a title yet, I didn't want to make a title. I wanted the first title to be something heavy. So I'm going to approach, I won't name names, but I'm going to approach some of the biggest rappers. Among these rappers, I have categorical refusals. I tell myself, you know what? Do it all by yourself. I find a studio, I lay down this voice, and in the meantime, all this time, Money Heist is experiencing huge success. And I tell myself, Since it's a big success, redo the loop you just did, but this time with a model. And I redo the same loop, but in reverse. I begin with games, although it was the last film I watched. He listened and abruptly declared it must be completed within 15 days. From there, he sends my version to Daju. Daju, who says, can you ask Naestro if I can pose with him? So I say, go ahead, it works, we make a title, all three of us. They come back and tell me, listen, we think it lacks a feminine touch, Vida. Behind, they proposed Slimani, and it has known a huge success. It was a diamond record, one of the most listened to titles in 2018. Then I learned that it's not a tube, but a hit. After that, I make a title with soprano. And then afterwards, I continue my journey alone, and over time, I realized that it's impossible. But I became even more aware of it the day I met my manager. We're in the studio, and then he tells me, listen, because I wanted to do features with this opera side and with rappers. He tells me, Nabil, you just moved aside, you can rap. I agree. He tells me, so you're going to sing and rap. He has this idea of calling this new style urban opera because the new title that we're making and that I'm telling through the clip, a bit of the story of my life. In this clip, in fact, I'm taking an opera tune where I sing Elou Cheval Estelle. So the title that I did at the opera when it was the Capharnaüm. I do this title and I like to sing this title when the notes are high. And the low notes, I'm not going to say that I get bored, but a little. So I thought to myself, hey, I'm going to keep the notes that impress me personally and the parts that are a bit boring, I'm going to put them in rap. So we rapped in Italian an opera tune and we called this style urban opera. When I look at this journey, I think to myself, it's still beautiful. What I've done is still beautiful. Firstly, my first success is on the family side, because on the family side, it really brought us closer together. God forgives. Why wouldn't we forgive? So the family forgave me, my brothers too, even though I kind of let them down in front of their colleagues and especially their superiors in the police and all that, because it's okay. After me, it's me, and them, it's them. That is to say, it's each one's thing. Each one takes his path. We can't point the finger either. But after I didn't hurt anyone, I didn't kill, I didn't rob people, I didn't... So regrets at that level, yes and no, because what I did is not good, but it's especially what made me become what I am now, and it's what especially made me discover my path like this.